Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is John Campea, and this is Open Mic. What is Open Mic? Well, I'm glad that you asked. See, every day on the John Campea Show, Monday through Friday, we save a little bit of time to take live questions. But here on the weekends, that's all we do. It's just Open Mic, hearing from you guys, talking about what you guys want to talk about, focusing on the world of movies and entertainment and all that sorts of good stuff. And it is the weekend, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you're having a good one already, and hope you've got great, fun, or relaxing things planned for you and your loved ones and your friends and family over the next 48 hours until we get back to it on Monday. So listen. A lot of things going on today. I got to record the UFC today because the UFC today, I'm not quite sure where it's being held, but it's the Covington Lawler fight today, and it starts actually at noon Pacific Standard Time, which is really different from what I'm used to. So I'm recording that while we do this, which is great. All right, without wasting any time, let's dive right into it and get to the questions you guys have been sending in. And we're going to get things started off here with Superman Steve, who writes, when was the last time you watched The Dark Knight? I think I watched The Dark Knight last Christmas. I believe it was when I was up home visiting family, because, you know, when I'm up visiting my family at the Campea Ranch, it's in the middle of winter, and when we're not out visiting other family or going to restaurants or things like that or booting around the ranch, we like to just kind of snuggle in at home, and sometimes we'll pop on some movies. And I believe it was last Christmas was the last time I watched The Dark Knight. It's one of those movies that's like Lord of the Rings for me. I try to watch it like once a year. At least once a year, I like to sit down and pop it in and give it a watch, because it's one of the greatest comic book movies ever made. Some people believe it is the greatest comic book movie ever made. To me, it's probably number 2 or 3, but it is absolutely beyond question one of the greatest comic book movies ever made. And yeah, about once a year, I try to watch that thing. All right, Nick writes, hope you're having a good weekend. So far, so good, Nick. Took your advice and watched Blade 1 and 2. Nice. If 3's the worst, I'm scared to watch because the first 2 were bad in my opinion. Well, you know, that's the thing, Nick. Not every movie is for everybody. I could totally... The Blade films are those films that I really enjoy watching, especially Blade 2. I got a big kick out of Blade 2. But it's also one of those stories and one of those IPs that you can get why they're not for everybody, and you can understand why not everybody's going to love them. And you know what? For you, Nick, Blade 1 and 2 weren't your cup of tea, and that's totally good. But you know what? Good on you for giving them a try. Good on you, Nick, for giving them a try. I personally really like them. They didn't work for you. Oh, well. But hey, at least you can say you gave them a shot. So that's good for you. All right. Cameron Ross writes, when I said, why isn't anybody talking about I remember this. Yeah, OITNB finale, I meant Orange is the New Black. Okay, I had no idea what you were talking about at the time. On Netflix, sorry, had 150 characters to write it out yesterday. Yeah, but I mean, that's the risk, though. I mean, if you're going to write in an abbreviation like that, or, you know, the acronyms, I may not know what it is you're talking about. I don't watch Orange is the New Black. I think I watched the first episode ever years ago, but it never caught me, so I never kept watching it. I'm not saying it's a bad show. I'm just saying it just wasn't for me. That's all. So I had no idea. I'll be honest with you. I didn't even know it was still on the air. Straight up. I didn't know Orange is the New Black was still on, let alone that this is its final season. I had no idea it was still on. I just had it in my head somewhere that it stopped being made a couple years ago. It was one of those shows where everybody talked about it for its first couple of seasons. Like, everybody was talking about Orange is the New Black. And then all of a sudden, it just stopped. Nobody was talking about it anymore. And so maybe that's kind of the reason why Cameron and I just kind of maybe thought it was already off the air. Nick writes, you mentioned that Catwoman, Battlefield Earth, and Blade 3 and The Room are known for being Hollywood's worst. Actually, my unholy trinity of the 3 absolute worst wide-release Hollywood-produced films are Catwoman, Battlefield Earth, and Highlander 2. Those are the absolute worst of the worst, to me, the unholy trinity of wide-release Hollywood mass-produced movies. But that's just me. The Room are known for being Hollywood's worst, but dude, you should check out Plan 9 from Outer Space. Add one to the list of Coop? Oh, crap? LOL. Well, I mean, Plan 9 from Outer Space, though, I mean, it's a different era. It's a different what they were going for. It's almost a B movie, so I don't know that I really classify that. See, when I talk about the unholy trinity of the worst, I mean high budget, all in on the studio's Hollywood wide release film. Now, I'm sure there are many films that are small independent films, things you've never seen that are worse than those three. But as far as the Hollywood produced wide release films, those three to me remain on the top of that mountain, Nick. Those are the three that for me stay on the top of that mountain. Which, if you guys have watched me for any period of time, really sucks because Highlander is in my top 10. The original Highlander is in my top 10. The sequel is in my unholy trinity of the worst ever. Nathan Oswald writes, Weekend at Bernie's turns... Oh my gosh, really? Weekend at Bernie's turns 30 years old this year. Wow. Wow. I mean, I guess it's not that crazy because I was young when that movie came out. So, but still to think of it in those terms, man, 30 years. Wow. Wow. Okay. Yeah, that puts things in perspective, doesn't it, Nathan? All right. Nathan also writes, if Kevin Feige creates the outline for the MCU, shouldn't he get a story by credit for each movie? No, not necessarily. Like, I think what happens really most part is, Kevin Feige lays out the overall outline of what he wants the MCU to be, but then he recruits writers and directors to actually flesh those out and make those stories. So, as Ryan Coogler tells it, Kevin Feige gives him a lot of freedom and his writers to make the movie they want to make. However, here are some road posts. This needs to happen somewhere in the movie. At the end of the movie, T'Challa needs to be alive and he needs to be king in Wakanda because he knows coming up is Infinity War, and Infinity War, he wants T'Challa to be the ruler. So he'll lay out these road posts, right? That says, these are certain things that can't happen in the movie you're going to tell. Here's a couple of things that need to happen. Now tell the story and make the movie you want to make. Now tell the story you want to tell, make the movie you want to make, as long as you stay within these guidelines. Now, of course, then they write the scripts and they got to submit them to Kevin Feige for his approval, and he'll give them some direction. Joss Whedon tells great stories about that, about how, Joss Whedon, the same thing happened. You got given all these road posts for the first Avengers. Joss Whedon wrote his first script for the Avengers, submitted it to Kevin Feige, and Joss Whedon's first script actually had Wasp in it. Joss Whedon's first script for Avengers did not have Black Widow, but it did have the Wasp. And, Kevin Feige knew we've got some plans for what we want to do with Black Widow later, so we got to make sure we have Black Widow in there. So Joss Whedon swapped out, he did another draft, swapping out the Wasp character for the Black Widow. But just creating those little road posts, that's not story by. That's not story by. So, no, I don't think Kevin Feige, unless there's a film of his that he's really involved with on that level, he just gives them the basic structure. These things have to happen. These things can't. Then the writers come up with the story. The director then directs the film, all under Kevin Feige's supervision. But no, I don't think he should get the story by credit, if that's the limit of his involvement on the storytelling level. All right. James L.H. writes, hey, John, back to the cinema after the heart attack. I remember you talking about that, James. Seeing Lion King, seeing Lion King, like you, understand why it's like Man of Steel, as I really enjoyed it despite the rotten score. Yeah, I mean, Lion King to me, it's phenomenal. Like, I say this all the time. I'm just going to look up, see where it is, because I think it was under 50%. To me, it's still over 50%. It's at 53, but still that's not good for this movie. Anyway, Lion King to me and Man of Steel, these are two films where most of the time I can love a movie and go, yeah, but I can understand why somebody else won't. I get it. I love it, but I can understand somebody else won't. There are two movies to me that I love that I will just never understand how people don't recognize the brilliance in them. One is Man of Steel, the Zack Snyder movie, and one is Lion King, the Jon Favreau movie. These are two movies to me that I respect, that all film is subjective, and I respect that people see them and don't like them as much as me. I respect that, but that doesn't mean I get it. And that doesn't mean I can understand why. I can do that with almost all my other movies that I love. Even Star Wars to me. Star Wars is life and air and breath. But even that I can go, yeah, I can understand why Star Wars isn't for everybody. I get that. It is for me. It's the greatest thing ever in the world for me, but I get why it's not for everybody. Man of Steel, Lion King, the two films that I will never get why people don't love them as much as me. I respect that they don't love them as much as me, and that's cool. I just will never understand it because I think these movies are effing brilliant. Anyway, I'm glad you enjoyed it, James. All right, James also follows up with, not sure about the U.S. In the U.K., after a heart attack, not allowed to drive for 4 weeks. No, I was never told of any such limitation after mine. So got the bus. 15-minute drive to the cinema took 1 hour. Oh, that's the one bad thing about, like, I have never taken a bus in Los Angeles. And I've been here for going on 10 years. I've never taken the bus. And the reason I've never taken the bus is because when I did some research to find out how long it would take me to get from point A to point B, it's like, I could walk there faster than it would take me to take the bus there. I mean, so I never have. Now, if you're lucky, like when I lived in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, that is my home. Living in Hamilton, the bus system was great. Like I knew if I needed to get it from one end of Upper Wentworth to the other end of Upper Wentworth, all I got to do is get the Wentworth bus. If I wanted to get downtown to Gore Park, just take any of the buses and they would all end up down at Gore Park. I knew if I needed to get to Lime Ridge Mall, hop up the Upper Ottawa bus and then just walk over from there. I mean, it just straight shoot lines, but you're in a city the size of Los Angeles or whatever city you're in, good public transportation is hard to find. That's why cities like New York or Toronto, which have, I can't speak to New York as much because I've only used it once or twice, the subway system in New York once or twice. The Toronto subway system is remarkable. Like a lot of people who live in Ontario, like, some people, if you own a car in Toronto, a lot of people will go, why own a car in Toronto? I mean, you can literally get everywhere in Toronto via public transportation. It's actually got a really good system. Anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about. But anyway, I'm glad you were able to get out to see the movie regardless, James. All right, Robert Aguirre writes, Thanos would have no prayer against Homelander. Hashtag justice for Man of Steel. I think Thanos would be able to handle Homelander. But oh my God, I love that character, Homelander. He's such a dick, but such a great character. Such a great villain antagonist character. If you guys haven't been watching The Boys yet, I highly recommend you get on that and start watching The Boys. All right, Ryan Lohner writes, I'd love to see a fight between Toretto and Shazam, both just shouting family at each other. Probably more Toretto shouting that. But I'm telling you what, I love Vin Diesel. You guys know I do. But I think he's got shaders on when it comes to his Toretto character because he makes his Toretto character. I mean, if Vin Diesel was executive producing Infinity War, that movie would have been over in 15 minutes. Thanos would have showed up. Dominic Toretto would have showed up in one of his souped up cars and a big lug wrench, and he would have beaten Thanos to death with it. If Vin Diesel was executive producing that. If Vin Diesel is executive producing this Warner Brothers film with a crossover, the Fast and the Shazam, then short movie. Him and Shazam would get into a fight. He would beat Shazam in about 30 seconds. Real simple, easy, and because that's just how Vin Diesel approaches his Dominic Toretto character. And again, I love Vin Diesel. I watch this guy all day, every day. But I gotta say, as a fan of his, I'll say one of his big blind spots is the fact that he makes his Dominic Toretto character an extreme Mary Sue, who can take on the world. He can fight an army of Russian tanks by himself. Nothing can touch him. And he's a mechanic, and that's just the one thing. But I love the guy. I really do. All right, Jonathan Teft writes, Erin Cummings' face while reading the Dora the Explorer review was the funniest thing I've seen all week. That was funny. I love Erin. And, I've been friends with Erin for 10 years now. And I think you guys are starting to see why I've been friends with her for 10 years. She's amazing. She's expressive and intelligent. Like, she's super smart. She's articulate. She's a terrifically talented actress as well. That's why she's been, she keeps getting cast in these shows. Like, she's been on so many shows. I just adore her. But you're right. That was a great moment. Her reading the look on her face as she was reading that Dora the Explorer review. That was something pretty special. Jonathan also writes, I've never seen any of the Fast and Furious movies, but Hobbs and Shaw looks like a lot of fun. Are there any that I should see before watching Hobbs and Shaw, or am I good to go on its own? You know what? I'll tell you what. I'll just tell you an example. I just went to go see Hobbs and Shaw with Chris Carr. Chris came to go see the movie with me. She had never seen a Fast and the Furious movie, which is a little bit shocking considering how much she watches, but she's never watched a Fast and the Furious movie. They've just, to her, never looked all that appealing, but something about Hobbs and Shaw did. So, having never seen any Hobbs and Shaw movie, all I told her was, okay, all you need to know is that he used to be a villain, Jason Statham. The Rock and him don't like each other. That's kind of the setup of the movie. Okay, there you go. And she loved it. She had a really good time with Hobbs and Shaw, and she had never seen a single Hobbs and Shaw movie before. So I would say this. It probably wouldn't be a bad idea to watch Fast 8. That probably wouldn't be a bad idea. Watch Fast 8 before seeing Hobbs and Shaw. But honestly, if you can't, no big deal. If Chris is any indication, I think you're totally good just to go in with Hobbs and Shaw cold, and I'll think you'll be able to appreciate it for what it is. All right. Roy L. writes, will there be a Hobbs and Shaw spoiler discussion? No, I don't think so. I hadn't even thought, I'll be honest with you, I didn't even think about it. Maybe I should have planned one, but no, I don't think so. I had fun with the movie. I did. I like it. I give it a thumbs up. I mean, it's got its problems. It's a dumb movie, but it is fun. I don't see there being a big need for a spoiler discussion on it, though. So I think we're going to take a pass on a spoiler discussion for Hobbs and Shaw. I don't know. Maybe that's a mistake, but we're going to take a pass on it. All right. Jay Meister 25 writes, Brad Bird rumored for Fantastic Four. What? I mean, ignore any of that. He's nowhere close. Kevin Feige is nowhere close to selecting a director for Fantastic Four. So don't even worry about it right now. Don't worry about it. But I'll tell you what, Brad Bird would be an inspired choice. I mean, there are a lot of directors, you know me, ex-director directing X-Men, as long as they're talented. Well, Brad Bird fits that bill. And considering Brad Bird directed probably the best Fantastic Four movie ever, it was called The Incredibles, that puts him right there in line. So while I would say pay no attention to that rumor, I would also say I won't be surprised if they announce Brad Bird as the director. Whenever that time comes, I wouldn't be surprised at all. We'll have to wait and see. Roy, but anyway, Jay Meister, a lot of people have been speculating that for years. For years, people have been saying Brad Bird to direct Fantastic Four. So we'll see what happens. Roy L. writes, The Boys has potential to make my top 10 list. I mean, it's real good. I don't know that it'd be my top 10, but damn, Roy, it's real good. I enjoyed it a great deal. Samuel C137 writes, I thoroughly enjoyed Hobbs and Shaw, even though I was at first skeptical when I learned the screenwriter was just 3 8-year-olds in a trench. I see what you're saying. It was just 3 8-year-olds in a trench coat. You know, I think here's the thing about Hobbs and Shaw. Like I already said, it's dumb. I mean, they could have done better. There's certain things about their plot that just don't make any sense at all whatsoever. That being said, you're going into Hobbs and Shaw for the action, for the banter, for the sharp one-liners. That's what you're going in there for. And it delivers on those levels. It could have been an even better movie if they fleshed out the story better. Then it could have been like an excellent movie. But, you know, for what it is, it's fun. It's enjoyable. I had a good time with it. So other than the fact that they dropped the ball on a lot of the fundamentals of movie making in the film, they made it enjoyable. They made it fun. They made it funny. And I had a good time. And I think ultimately that's the bottom line. Did you have a good time? And I can say I had a good time watching it. All right. Willow Yang writes, Uwe Boll may make terrible movies, but he runs a highly acclaimed restaurant called Bauhaus here in Vancouver. Everyone's good at something. Really? I had no idea he owns a restaurant. What is it with celebrities who want to own restaurants? Especially sports celebrities. I hear about a lot of sports celebrities who even before they retire, they'll buy restaurants and they'll open restaurants. I mean, which is a good idea for athletes because you want to have something to do after you're retired with your career. And I'm not saying restaurants are a bad investment. It's just that it seems like a lot of celebrities want to open restaurants. Who knew? And so Uwe Boll owns a restaurant in Vancouver. Next time I'm in Vancouver, I'm going to have to check that out, Willow. All right, Roy L. writes, my birthday is this Friday. Well, happy birthday, a little early. I'm planning on doing a double feature with a third showing of Hobbs and Shaw and Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. That's one that nobody's talking about. Everybody's sleeping on that one. And I don't know what to make of it, but I talked to somebody who saw it, and they said it was really creative. Now, they said, I don't want to spoil anything for him. I'm not going to tell you things. All he told me was, this is some really creative part storytelling. In which he said, I think you're going to like it. So I'm looking forward to checking it out after hearing that recommendation. So that sounds like a good double feature, Roy. All right. Slim Trav writes, over under 30% Hobbs and Shaw appears in Fast 10. In my opinion, under. I would go under 20%. It's not zero. It's not 0%. But yeah, I'm very comfortable taking under 30%. I would probably be even comfortable taking under 20. I think it's very unlikely. Dim-Sum05 writes, saw Hobbs. I never think a movie needs to be rated R, but this movie lost a lot of its impact to me because of it. The cameos were the best part, in my opinion. The cameos, and I wouldn't even call them cameos because they have multiple scenes, so it's more like small roles, but let's call them, for the sake of argument right now, let's call them cameos. The cameos are the best part of the movie. They are great. That doesn't take away from the rest of everything, but they are great. You know, it's kind of like saying, well, Spider-Man Far From Home, the best part was the post-credit scene. Yes, that's true, but that doesn't mean the rest of the movie wasn't good. And yes, those cameos, particularly the one guy, was the best part of the movie. But that doesn't mean the rest of the movie didn't also have a lot of upside to it as well. You know what I'm saying? So I agree with you on that, Dim Sum, I do. All right, Just Plain Steve writes, do you think Jane Foster as Thor lessens the chances of seeing Beta Ray Bill in Thor 4? Two new worthy people might make it seem less special. Well, no. And it all depends on what they... Look, remember, a lot of people get handcuffed to their preconceived notions about what they can do with characters in the movies. You can do Beta Ray Bill in the movies and do him significantly differently than you do in the comics, like they do with most of their stuff, right? Just because Beta Ray Bill is one thing and is portrayed one way and does certain things in the comics, that doesn't necessarily mean that's what they're going to do with him in the movies, right? So I think we got to keep that in mind as well. Look, every movie has 20, 30, 40, 50 characters in it. Not most of them are all minor, but I don't see why not. No, I'm going to say this. I don't think having Jane in there as a Thor character lessens the chances of Beta Ray Bill being there. I don't think it increases the chances of Beta Ray Bill being there, but I don't think it decreases the chances either. So there's that. All right. Tony Hurd writes, hashtag Han had it coming. Hashtag everyone has a hot cousin. Hashtag drink the Seagal juice. And hashtag soup goop. You and your team are magic. I'm telling you what, I love the group of people I do this show with. I really do. Both behind the camera and in front of the camera. And, you know, it has been the unique privilege of my career in this field to work with the best people. I have always worked with the best people, you know, and I'm always lucky. And I, you know, back in my AMC days and onward, I always looked around and there's some other great YouTube channels, some other great programming out there. And the one thing that I always felt comfortable saying is, I have the best team. Like, there's a great team over there. There's a great team over there below. But I've always felt comfortable saying, I believe I am working with the best group of people. And I've always felt that way. And I feel that way today. I feel like I'm working with the best group of people. There are other great groups of people, wonderful groups of people, fantastic groups of people that I'm entertained by on a daily basis. But, you know, and I'm obviously a little biased, but I really do feel I work with the best group of people, both in front of and behind the camera. You know, we're talking about Rob or Erin or Chris or, you know, Ashley before her or, you know, behind the scenes with Ray and Jonathan, just solid, rock solid, reliable guys. And, you know, I just, it's been one of the luckiest things about my career. So thank you for pointing that out, Tony. Keith Gilmore writes, hey, John, love the show. Thank you so much, Keith. Do you think Marvel should do a series of Captain America 1? I've answered this question a couple times already. Do you think Marvel should do a series of Captain America one-shots that show how he returned each of the stones? No. Zero. Captain America is my favorite character in the MCU. I have absolutely double-zero interest in watching that. There's no point. There's no point. We not only do we know what happens in the end, we know what happens in the end of every single little one shot, right? there's no point. I don't see any need for it. I don't see any point for it. It does nothing to further the story of the MCU that they've got going on. It accomplishes nothing creatively. It accomplishes nothing narratively. So despite the fact that Captain America is indeed my favorite character, I have double zero interest in seeing that at all. I just don't see any purpose for it. I just don't see what the practical purpose would be. That's just my thought on that. Okay. Benny95 writes, that baby scene in The Boys was hilarious. It absolutely was. I remember I saw a trailer of that baby scene. I'm like, okay, I'm on board. I don't know what the context of that scene is, but I'm on board. And then you see it in context and it was even better. Benny95 writes, where do we go here? Here we are. What would you have done if Anne didn't love Star Wars? I'm not sure. Would that have been a deal breaker? Maybe. My girlfriend fell asleep in Lord of the Rings, but they are my favorite films of all time. Yeah, but Lord of the Rings, and I love Lord of the Rings, but they're very long movies, right? So falling asleep in them, I can get a little bit. So the way the story goes is Anne and I had been dating for a couple of months at this point. We've been dating for a couple of months. And I honestly thought when I got involved with Anne, it was just going to be a fling. Because I was not planning on staying in the States. I had come down to the States. My plan was to be here for 1 year, meet a bunch of the people in person that I've interacted with online, because, I'm a Canadian kid, and then go home, learn more about the business down here, understand the way things work down here a little bit more, and then get my ass back home. I wanted to go home. I had no plans of staying in Los Angeles. And so when Anne and I met, she was just getting out of a 7-year relationship, a relationship she had been in since early high school. And I was also relatively fresh out of a relationship, and I was only going to be in the States for less than a year. I was only going to be in the States for 8 more months. And so Anne and I started dating. And so we both said, hey, this isn't going to be anything serious. We're just going to have some fun, hang out together, just enjoy the time that we have. And then, we'll be better for the experience, right? One of those things. But after we were dating for 3 or 4 months, I started realizing, no, this is more serious than that. And I knew that she had never seen Star Wars. And we had a very serious life-changing conversation where we sat down and I looked her in the face. I said, listen, baby, I think this is going pretty well. This is going better than I was expecting, our relationship. I really like you. But here's the thing. You've never watched Star Wars. And that's okay. I don't judge you or your family for the fact that you've never watched Star Wars. I could judge you, and I could judge your parents for the rotten parenting job they've done not having you reared up on the glory that is George Lucas's Star Wars. But I'm not going to do that. But this looks like it could be more. This relationship, we've been together for 4 months now. This relationship's starting to feel like it could be more than either of us thought it could be. But I'm going to tell you right now, woman. I'm going to tell you right now. We can't go any further until I know what you think about Star Wars. Because you may be my baby. Star Wars is my life. So here's what we're going to do. Next week, we're going to sit down. We're going to watch, over the course of 3 days, the 3 original Star Wars movies. I won't make you marathon them because I'm going to want to let you breathe a little bit in between each. And no pressure. But this will determine our future. Now, fortunately for me, Anne watched the Star Wars movies and fell in love with Star Wars. And now she's almost as big of a Star Wars freak as me. But what would I have done? What would I have done if she didn't like Star Wars? It would have been challenging. I think it would have been more challenging for her because if she hated Star Wars, fact of the matter is she was just going to have to put up the fact that everything about me is about Star Wars and that I love Star Wars so much. I don't love everything about Star Wars, but I love Star Wars so much. Just like I don't love everything about Anne, nor does Anne love everything about me, but she loves me more than anything and I love her more than anything, right? So I don't love everything about Star Wars, but I love Star Wars more than anything. And it would have been difficult. It would have been difficult. And remember, it's not like we're talking about would I have left my wife over. So remember, we had been dating for 4 months. So at that point, it was a different context. So I don't know. Probably if she had hated Star Wars, I just would have grinned and bared it and just never said anything. That's probably what would have happened. Maybe our relationship would have gone in a different direction. But it became a pivotal moment when she watched Star Wars, the woman of my dreams, and she loved Star Wars. That's when the magic happened. So we wouldn't have had that magic moment. We wouldn't have had that magic moment if it was a pivotal turnkey moment in our relationship that she fell in love with Star Wars. And here we are today. Anyway, hope that answers the question. All right. Benny95 writes, let's see. Also just finished Infinity War and Endgame back-to-back. It truly felt like one epic movie. Did you see the deleted scene of the Avengers honoring Tony? I felt like it would have worked at keeping it in. If you're talking about at the end of Endgame when they're still on the battlefield and they all took a knee, rubbish. I thought it was rubbish. I really did. I thought it was cringy. I thought it was forced. Now, there's a number of cringy and forced in there things that they do in Endgame, but they all have a really great payoff. Or at least most of them have really great payoffs, so we accept them, right? The whole kneeling to that would have felt to me. I watched that deleted scene and like, okay, this feels unnatural. It feels forced. And it's just frankly cringy to me. For me, I think the Russo brothers in their infinite wisdom made a very, very wise, shrewd choice. And I respect their decision a great deal to take that scene out of the movie. I agree with the Russo brothers. I agree with the Russos and Feige on this. I think that would have been a bad scene to leave in. I already thought there was no purpose for it. There was no need for it. It would have felt forced. It was cringy to me. It's like, meh. That I believe took away, I believe that would have taken away from the sentimentality of the moment. Doing something that forced in a moment that's supposed to have a real emotional impact, I think would have undermined the emotional impact that the scene had. And I think Feige and Russos were 1,000% right to take that scene out. It was a completely unnecessary thing. I don't blame them for shooting it. Maybe on the page it looked better, but then they saw it and they realized, nah, we don't need this. Take it out. It's taking away from the other elements of the scene, and yeah, let's take it out. So I'm glad I'm glad they took it out because I didn't think it would have worked at all. Let's see. James L.H. writes, Cineworld secret screenings are always fun, always a surprise. This time was Crawl. Occasionally rolled my eyes, but it was fun and had a good time. I had a great time with Crawl. Big, pleasant surprise movie for me. Because I was not expecting much out of that movie, to be frank with you. I wasn't expecting much, but I had a very, very good time. I love these secret screens. Look, I don't live in the UK, so I'm not really familiar, but if I understand it right, and I probably don't, these secret screenings they literally have a secret screening and you can go to this movie, but they don't tell you what the movie is. But I guess it's a movie that they show it to you early before it comes out in theaters. And you rolling the dice. You don't know what the movie is. It's kind of like a mystery box, right? You don't know what's inside. And you go and they show you a movie. I think that's great. I would go to those things all the time. I would go all the time. James L.H. writes, every secret screening I've been to, when the title appears, people walk out not giving it a chance, something I can't understand. Well, I can get that. Like, if you're going, look, here's the thing. If you're going to a secret screening, and I can't remember all that came out around the same time as Endgame, but let's say you go to a secret screening and it's like 2 weeks before Endgame comes out, and you know Cineworld is having a secret screening. You think, might be Endgame. Might be Avengers Endgame, right? This is back before the movie opened. Might be Endgame. Let's roll the dice and go. And then it's like, I don't know. Marcus Makes Dinner, the movie. Some indie, whatever, little film, whatever. And you were all hyped up for hoping it would be Endgame. Yeah, I can see it's like, oh, okay, it's not what we were hoping for. I got other things I'd rather be doing right now, so we're going to go. I could totally see that happening. And no judgment from me. If you don't want to see, listen, watching a movie is an investment. It's not just an investment of the money you pay to go see it. It's also an investment of time. And let's face it, at the end of the day, time is the most valuable resource we have. And if you got to ask yourself, if you're in that theater and the title comes up and it's not a movie you're looking forward to or not a movie you're excited about, you got to ask yourself, do I want to invest the next 2 hours and watching a movie I'm honestly not interested in? Or should I invest my 2 hours of time going out and grabbing drinks with my friends, or catching up on a favorite show of mine at home, or getting some exercise, or playing a game, or whatever? You got to ask yourself, what do I want to invest my time in? So I could totally get why some people want to get up and walk out, James. All right, let's move on here. Chris Feldman writes, will shows like The Mandalorian be available to purchase outside of Disney Plus? Game of Thrones, Stranger Things, and soon Doom Patrol all got DVD releases. I don't know. My guess is no, but that's just a guess. I think Disney wants people. Look, the reason they're making this show is to get people to sign up to Disney Plus. So they very well could release Blu-ray editions of The Mandalorian. They could do that, but I'm not sure why they would. If the whole purpose of making this show is to get more people to come and sign up for Disney Plus, why would you make it available on another medium? I'm not sure. Again, I'm not saying they're not going to. Let's be clear about that. I'm not saying they're not going to. I'm just saying I don't know. And if I were Disney, I wouldn't release it on Blu-ray or DVD. If the whole point of it is to get people to sign up for Disney Plus, then I'm going to say the exclusive place to watch The Mandalorian is Disney Plus. That's the exclusive place to watch it. So that just seems to make more sense to me. But who knows? We'll have to wait and find out how Disney's going to handle it. We are getting closer. We're getting closer. All right. Where are we at here? Rory Brown writes, watching The Boys, and specifically the Homelander scenes, really make me love and appreciate Man of Steel even more with its realistic portrayal of how the world would react to Superman. Rory, I'm so glad you brought that up, because I can talk about Man of Steel all day, but one of the things that people do not appreciate about this movie, and even people like me who do appreciate the movie are guilty of not drawing attention to more often, is I think that's one of the most astute elements of Man of Steel. Not just about how would Kal-El react in today's world. Like, a lot of people think of Superman, they think of him in terms of a 1960s world. How would a Superman interact and understand and try to blend into today's world? And how would he respond and be like in today's world? But how would today's world respond to him? And that is one of the real big strengths of not only Man of Steel, but also of Justice League, I think. Is the part of it that's the examination of how does the world respond to him? You know, and I think that's one of the things they really nailed about Superman. Not so much the character, but how does the world respond to that character? You know, I think one of the best moments in Batman versus Superman is that montage scene showing all the different pundits and the different views and ways they would approach and look at. From Degrassi talking about, you know, we are not alone in the universe. It poses a fundamental question to us as a species. You know, to other people saying, you know, what is the ramifications of this on global sovereignty? They'd ask questions about what does this mean about this and about that. And I actually thought that is one of the more underappreciated elements of Batman versus Superman, because I thought that was profound. Really, it's taking the time in those movies to ask the question, how does the world respond to that? You know, because even in great MCU movies, with the mild exception of the Sokovia Accords that we get to in Civil War, but even then it's a minor look at things. You know, Iron Man never really takes any time to see how does the world react to Iron Man? How does the world react to Thor? An alien Norse god being with godlike power. How does the world respond to that? And other than the odd little girl running up to him in the street saying, "Can I take a selfie with you?" I mean, honestly, it's not really explored. And that is something that they did explore in Man of Steel and Batman vs. Superman that I thought was really interesting. I thought that was really fascinating part of it. All right. Great observation, Rory. All right. Wesley Cunningham writes, 1 to 4. Okay, this is a long one. Lost World Jurassic Park 2 was on TV recently and got me thinking as I watched. I've never seen this movie, or even 3, as near as bad as I keep hearing from friends online, etc. Just not near as good as the original. One of the best of all time, clearly a high bar to clear. Do you feel sequels to all-time great movies. Example, Godfather 3, Terminator 3, Matrix 2 and 3, Crystal Skull, etc., get judged more harshly, even without meaning to, due to such a high standard of its predecessor. P.S. Fans since the fabled Man of Steel review. Also, Chris is a gem. Hashtag Supergoop. She is a gem. It's a great question. You know, films are art. We evaluate art. We judge art on our own subjective standards, but we all judge art. But we also judge art on radically different standards and that are unique from each other. So I think a great example of this is Lion King. If Lion King came out in a vacuum, would more people like it? Maybe. But the original Lion King is beloved. And unless you're exactly like that first beloved thing, I don't know. But in asking, did we judge Godfather 3 too harshly because its predecessor was so good? Well, then you have to ask that about Godfather 2. And Godfather 2 is the sequel to one of, if not the greatest film of all time in The Godfather. But now people regard Godfather 2 as one of, if not the greatest film of all time. Godfather 3, not so much, although Godfather 3 did get nominated for Best Picture. I think Godfather 3 gets a bad rap. Can I just say that for a second here? I think Godfather 3 gets a bad rap. I really do. The stuff with Sofia Coppola is bad. All right? Yes, there's no getting around that. All the stuff involving Sofia Coppola in that movie is bad. Francis decided to put his own daughter in it, give her a major storyline. That was a bad decision. But that aside, I thought the whole rest of the stuff with the Pope and the Vatican and all the kind of stuff, every time I think I'm out, they drag me back in, I think that movie's effing brilliant. Aside from the Sofia Coppola stuff, I think the movie's fantastic. As good as Godfather 1 and 2? No. But I still think it's fantastic, and I'm all for the fact that it got a Best Picture nomination. Think about that. All 3 Godfather films got Best Picture nominations. The first 2 actually won their awards. But yeah, no, I think when the bar is raised, it changes our expectation of what the next one needs to do or be, right? The same is true for and that's fair, and it can be completely not fair. There are some sequels that are really good movies, perfectly good movies on their own right, but they kind of pale in comparison to maybe the first one, and therefore we poo-poo on the sequel, even though on its own merits, the sequel was perfectly good. We've seen that happen a number of times. We also do that financially, right? Look at Star Wars The Last Jedi. Star Wars The Last Jedi is one of the most profitable films of all time. Let me just bring up Box Office Mojo here for a second. Star Wars The Last Jedi is one of the biggest movies of all time. If we bring it up here, domestically, Star Wars The Last Jedi is the 9th biggest film in the history of cinema, domestically. Worldwide, Star Wars isn't as big worldwide as it is domestically. But even worldwide, hold on a second, let me find it here. The Star Wars The Last Jedi worldwide is the 12th biggest film in the history of film, right? It was the box, and remember, we're just talking about money here. Box office wise, it was the number 1 film of 2017. It was the number 1 film of 2017. And yet, despite the fact, number 9 all-time domestic film, number 12 all-time worldwide, and the number 1 film of 2017 box office-wide, both domestic and worldwide, and yet making over $1.3 billion, and yet there are people who paint it as a disappointment. Because Star Wars The Force Awakens made $2 billion, right? So despite the fact that it's the 9th biggest film of all time, remember, we're not talking about the quality of the film here. We're just talking about the financial results and how we have different standards for different movies, and sometimes that's not fair. Despite the fact that it's the 9th all-time domestic film box office-wise, the 12th largest film worldwide box office-wise, and was the number 1 film of the year box office-wise, there are still people who try to paint it as a disappointment because compared to The Force Awakens, right? And I think that's indicative of how we also evaluate quality of movies. Hey, this movie was perfectly good. Yeah, but it wasn't as good as the one before it, therefore it sucks. And that's not really fair, you know? And I've always tried to say we need to evaluate films on their own merits. It is tricky for us because it's fair to compare it to the previous films, but then you got to also step beyond that. So like, look, I'll say Hobbs and Shaw is not the best of the Fast and Furious franchise. I don't know if I'd put it in the top 3, to be honest. So I am comparing it to Fast and Furious, but then I evaluate it on its own merits. You know what? Overall, dumb movie, but I had fun with it. It's got the one-liners, it's got the banter, and it's got the action that all outweigh the negatives, and it's a good movie. So it's fair to compare it to its franchise or its genre, but then you got to give your final evaluation based on its own merits. And I think that's both fair to do. But it's something we do get in. We raise the bar depending on what the previous things won, and then we think, oh, if you don't meet the bar that the previous one did, then that's a failure. Even if what it accomplishes better than 98% of other stuff that's out there, it didn't meet the bar of the previous one, so we see it as a failure. And I think that's unfair. I think it's fair to compare it, but then we ultimately got to give a judgment on it based on its own merits. So anyway, Wesley, that's how I kind of see it. Interesting question. Thanks for bringing that up. The Megan Young Show writes, are you a Neil Gaiman fan? I wouldn't say I'm a Neil Gaiman fan, but I certainly respect it. I mean, how can you not respect the guy's work? I mean, his work has been transformed in some of the great on-screen entertainment as well. Whether you're talking, look, one of my all-time favorite, one of my, I think, number one most underrated movie ever. Maybe even more underrated than Man of Steel. Man of Steel is the most underrated comic book movie, but I think the most underrated, underappreciated, and undervalued movies ever made is Stardust. I love Stardust. I love that movie. That's the kind of movie that makes me fall in love with the movies. I love that thing, based on Neil Gaiman. Even right now, we've got like Good Omens, American Gods. Like there's so much Neil Gaiman properties. He's one of the most prolific writers in history. There are so many Neil Gaiman properties, both classically, some of the most well-known stuff ever, and even just right now is on the screen. So while I wouldn't classify myself as a big Neil Gaiman fan, you cannot help but respect his work. And be a little bit grateful because he's given us some of the really great stuff that's out there for sure. Quizada writes, wasn't Fury Road a flop? They made $380 million worldwide on a $150 million budget. I'm all for it, but why would they move forward on making another one? Well, I mean, I don't know that I would call it a flop. It certainly struggled to break even, if it broke even at all, and I'm not sure that it did. I'm not positive it did, but it may have. Either way, it didn't lose. If it did lose money, it didn't lose tons of money. So I don't know that I would call it a flop. But I have made the point myself, over the years that, like, everyone's saying, how can they not have a Fury Road sequel so far? Well, the box office, the audience didn't justify. The amount of people who went out to go see it doesn't really justify fast tracking and, we have to make a sequel. As much as the people who saw Mad Max Fury Road loved it, and a lot of people did, it just didn't do the business that would demand that a studio immediately turn its attention to getting another one made. Now, all reports say that Warner Brothers is interested in making another one, and that's good. So they do have interest in making another one. There's a legal wrestling going on between the director of the film and the studio right now, because the director was supposed to get a bonus if he brought the movie in under budget. They didn't make the movie under budget, so Warner Brothers didn't give him the bonus. His point, though, is that we only went over budget because of changes you, the studio, insisted we make, and that forced us to go over budget. So that's on you. And so there's this big legal wrestling going on right now over the whole thing. But Miller says, Oh, I believe we're going to get past this, and I believe another one's going to happen. So apparently we are going to get another one, but I got to believe that if Mad Max Fury Road had made $700 million, this legal problem would have gone away. Warner Brothers would have gone, sure, we'll pay you the $15 million bonus. No big deal, because they made $700 million. But since they maybe lost a little bit of money or barely broke even, Warner Brothers is probably like, you know what? No, we said you'd get the bonus if you came in under budget. And for whatever reason, we didn't come in under budget, so we don't want to part with another $15 million or however big the bonus is supposed to be. But yeah, man, if Fury Road had made $700 million, none of this would be a question right now. This would have been dealt with ages ago. And we would, not only would a sequel be being made, a sequel would have been in theaters already. They would have been in pre-production, production, post-production, and released the damn movie already. We would have already had Mad Max Fury Road 2 would have already been in theaters probably a while ago if the movie had made $700 million, but it didn't. And I think that's what's holding it up, but it does sound like they're going to make one at some point anyway. All right, Suthius writes, hey, Mr. Campea, Toy Story 4 is now at $927 million. $1 billion? Well, it's almost out of gas, but the one thing that does work in its favor is that there are still a number of international markets that have not opened Toy Story yet. Toy Story 4 still hasn't opened in all the markets around the world. So yeah, I'd say I'm not guaranteeing Toy Story 4 will hit the $1 billion mark, but it's definitely still in play. The possibility of hitting $1 billion is still in play. So let's see how that all turns out. My God, Disney this year already has in the $1 billion club. Captain Marvel is in the $1 billion club. Endgame, obviously, in the $1 billion club. Aladdin is in the $1 billion club. Lion King is now in the $1 billion club. I mean, now we're heading towards maybe Toy Story 4. It's just kind of crazy. Sentes Henderson writes, Brando versus Lewis, better actor, awards aside, still Daniel Day-Lewis. Daniel Day-Lewis is the greatest actor of all time. Greatest actor of all time, period. Marlon Brando was great. Not taking that away from him. But I don't know that I'd put Brando in the top 3. I love Brando. He's amazing. But there are lots of super amazing performers that aren't in the top 3, right? But no, absolutely, to me, Daniel Day-Lewis is the GOAT. And you can't say awards aside, because that's all the other actors in the world, all the other actors in the Academy, the thousands of actors who are part of the Academy. When the other actors say, this guy is the best actor, and they give him an Academy Award for that, that counts. And he's got several of them. But even that aside, to me, it's Daniel Day-Lewis. Sentes writes, favorite MCU moment to date? I still, there's a lot of them. Right now, if I thought about it more, I might give a different answer. But in Infinity War, Thor sitting down, talking with Rocket Raccoon, the conversation that ends with, then what else do I have to lose? To me, that conversation is the best moment in the MCU to date. But if I think about it, maybe I'll think of a better one from earlier films, but that's the one that stands out to me. Suthius writes, when I hear you say you only drive maybe thrice a week, I feel some type of way. My wife and I each put on 30 to 40,000 miles on our cars a year. Crazy, I know. No, I get it. Seriously, like Ann and I, we live in Burbank now, but early in our married life, we lived about an hour to an hour and a half outside of LA in a town called Corona, right beside Riverside, California. It's a town called Corona. Anyway, that's where we lived. And Ann had to commute into Anaheim every day because she was working for the Congresswoman. She was on the Congresswoman's staff in Anaheim. My wife is a smart lady. I consider myself a smart guy. My wife is a really smart lady. Anyway, so my wife worked in government. She worked on the Congresswoman's staff. And so she had to do a lot of commuting. I was working from home, but I was still going to a lot of screenings and press junkets. Now, I don't do press junkets anymore, and I skip most screenings. But back then, I was doing a lot of screenings and going to almost all the press junkets. So about 4 times a week, I was having to drive into LA. And sometimes it would take me 2 hours or more to get into LA and all that kind of stuff. And both of us just said, do you know how many hours a month we are spending in the car? Do you know how many hours of our month is spent in a car? And remember I said a little bit earlier that to me, the most valuable resource we have is time. And I said it's literally days worth of time that is being robbed from us just because we got to be sitting in our cars going to and from our jobs. We got to move. Even though it's going to be more expensive, we have to move because we are just simply losing too much of our time being in these cars. So shortly after that, Anne got out of government and she started work. She got the job offer from Hasbro, which, you know, big. Her all-time favorite movie is Big. So the idea of working for a toy company really appealed to her. So, so she decided to take that. I talked AMC into letting us open a studio in the big giant converted storage closet at the AMC Burbank 16. And Hasbro is in Burbank as well. It's in North Hollywood technically, but it's only like 5-10 minute drive away. And we decided to move into Burbank, even though it was expensive. Time is more expensive. And so we decided to move into Burbank and we've been here ever since. I have such high respect, Suthius, for people who do long commutes because I can't do it. I can't do it. I cannot waste my time in a car. But I have huge respect for those who can do it because that takes some fortitude that I just don't have, to be honest with you. So hats off to you and your wife, Suthius. Hats off to you and your wife. Suthius also writes, Thor told the Guardians not anyone can just wield a king's weapon. I know where you're going with this. They're not strong enough. He says your minds will instantly melt into madness, right? Saying why nobody else can hold one of these Nidavellir weapons, right? Anyway, as they're not strong enough. Yet Cap was able to hold Stormbreaker during the final battle. Is Cap strong enough? Or was that an overlook? No, here's the thing. Not to mention, Cap has no connection to Stormbreaker. The reason it ended up in his hands because he reached out for it and it flew to his hand, right? That makes no sense. He had no connection to Stormbreaker. So that makes no sense. Also, the fact that he was handle it and wield it when he has a mortal mind. Remember, it's not the same. Odin's enchantment that Odin put on Mjolnir about whoever is worthy, right? That enchantment isn't on Stormbreaker. But it's supposed to be this, you know, mythical power that if a mortal grabbed it and tried to wield it, his mind would instantly melt into madness, right? Cap had it. Now, granted, he only had it for a second, but no ill effects. Oh, no, you take the small one, I'll take the big one. Oh, okay, blah, blah, blah. So there are two different reasons why that shot made no sense. Two different reasons. He never should have been able to summon it to his hand. And number two, the moment he summoned it, his mind should have melted into madness, according to what Thor said in Infinity War. So there are two reasons that shot should never have happened. And this is a great example, Suthius, about why I say in Endgame, there are a lot of little logic problems that I'm totally okay with because the payoff of those logic problems are so entertaining. Does Captain America being able to summon Stormbreaker to his hand and being able to still even hold it make any sense? No. It's a logic loop. It's a logic problem for the movie. But do I care? No, because that moment was so funny. They're holding the different weapons. No, you take the small one. I'll take the big, that. It's a funny moment. And so if the price tag for having that good laugh in the movie was they had to create a couple of logic problems, so be it. So be it. You're right. It is a logic problem. It's another scene that doesn't make any sense. But the payoff to me was worth it. Now that describes a lot of Endgame to me. A lot of logic problems, but the payoffs were worth it, so I'm okay with it. But it doesn't mean we should ignore the logic problems either, because that was a logic problem to me. Anyway, Suthius writes, I don't think Hobbs and Shaw will have a $100 million weekend. Well, I mean, they projected a long time ago it was going to have between a $55 to $65 million opening weekend. So, yeah, no $100 million opening. They've been projecting 55 to 65 for a while. Hoser Miaz writes, your thoughts on Showtime Halo TV series? I have very little interest in it, to be honest with you. Very little interest. We'll see how it turns out, and I'll give it a shot. But right now, I have very little interest in it at this moment. I was interested in Halo 11 years ago. Maybe it was 12 years ago. when Peter Jackson was going to produce it and all the studios were on board, I was interested in Halo back then. I have no interest in it anymore. Now, that doesn't mean you can't get my interest, but as of right now, I have no interest. Pool of Dead writes, am I the right one? No. Tyler Yeats writes, Dean Winchester is my favorite TV character. I love Dean. I do. Lucifer is probably my favorite TV character, though, right now. I remember Dean wasn't even my favorite character on Supernatural. For the longest time, my favorite character on TV was Crowley in Supernatural. I love that character, but right now, Lucifer is my favorite character on TV. Although I do love me Supernatural, and I love me some Dean Winchester. All right, Pool of Dead writes, Lion King is dropping hard for a movie in 4,700 theaters and keeping a lot of screens, even with Hobbs and Shaw coming out. No, it's not dropping hard. For a movie as big as it is, it's not dropping hard at all. I mean, look, Lion King, hold on a second. Let me just go back to this. Lion King is already crossed the $1 billion club, so there you go. Lion King made, in its opening weekend, damn it, I clicked the wrong thing. Give me a second here. Lion King made, on its opening weekend, $192 million opening weekend. Now, for normal films that open like 40, 50, 60 million, you'd like to see a 50 to 55% drop. I mean, it'd be even better if you can drop less than that, but you'd like for it to be in that 50 to 55% drop range. We talk about this all the time. The problem is when you get huge movies that open to 150 million or more, well, now most people have already gone to see it, right? So when you have a movie that's going to open to 30 million, 40 million, 70 million even, that means there's still a lot of people who haven't gone out to see that movie. Still a ton of people who still haven't gone out to see that movie. Lion King opened 191. And so you're talking about now, when you get into 150 million plus, now you start talking about 55 to 65% drop, right? Is an acceptable range. Lion King took a 60% drop in its second week. That's perfectly within range for a movie that opened to almost $200 million. Not to mention, let's look at Avengers Endgame. Avengers Endgame, let me just go here. Avengers Endgame basically took a 60% drop as well. Infinity War. Infinity War took a 56% drop, right? So you're right in the realm. And a lot of films that open over 150 million take a lot more than a 60% drop. And it made like 75. I expect this weekend it should make 30 to $32 million, I'm expecting. It's taking a perfectly acceptable rate of drop at this point. It's not dropping hard at all. Your analysis of that is quite off. It's already crossed $1 billion. Yeah. And being on 40, I don't think it's going to be on 4,700 screens by the time the weekend report comes out. I have a feeling it's not going to be on 4,700 screens by the time the weekend report comes out. Oops, let me just double check something here. If I'm looking at the day chart, yeah, I have a feeling by the time Sunday rolls around, you're going to see under 4,000 at that point, but it doesn't matter because it's percentage of drop. So it doesn't matter if it's in 5 theaters or if it's in 5,000 theaters. It's all about percentage of drop. So no, financially, it's doing exactly what it should be doing right now. It's doing exactly what it should be doing right now. As a matter of fact, Friday, Lion King made $11.1 million. That's a 51% drop from Lion King on the previous Friday. Last Friday, Lion King made $222 million. This Friday, it's made $11.1 million, taking a 51% drop. I mean, it's doing exactly what it should be doing. So I'm not quite sure where you're going with that. All right, ZOMG Ruler writes, what Dr. Savannah and Seven Sins did to those people, so evil. Oh, it is. I love Shazam. I love Shazam. I love that movie. Granted, I love that movie more than most people do. Not everybody loves it as much as me, but a lot of the audience did love it. I think it's a delightful, charming, and I like Dr. Savannah. I thought he was a great villain. I mean, not Loki level great, not Thanos level great, but I thought Dr. Savannah was a great villain. All right. Justin Welsh writes, Hey, John, not loving Cineplex these days. Me either, Justin, to be honest with you. They keep changing their award system. I shed a tear when you mentioned A-list and subscriptions. Hashtag jealous Canuck. Yeah, I'm waiting for somebody in the PR department of Cineplex theaters in Canada. Write to me. Explain to me why when I come home and want to go to my beloved Cineplex theater and I want to see this big brand new movie, Bumblebee, this is back at Christmas time, out of all the screenings and all the showings you have for it in your theater, only one screening was the non-3D one. Because you want to force your customers to go to the more expensive 3D screenings, they only gave one screening at 4 p.m. in the afternoon on a weekday that I could take my mom to go see Bumblebee. Tell me why your tickets are so expensive, but more importantly, you manipulate and take advantage of your customers and force them to go to some bullshit 3D screening, oh no, we have non-3D ones, one screening at 4 p.m. in the afternoon, everything else, oh, you want to see Bumblebee? Bend over, because we're going to force you and herd you like cattle into the more expensive 3D bullshit. Ha ha, and there's nothing you can do about it. I've become so dissolute, and remember, this is the company that I dreamed of working with. When I was working at AMC, I knew I'm not going to spend the rest of my life in the States. I want to go back home. I want to go to Canada at some point because that's home. And my dream was, wouldn't it be amazing if I could go back to Canada and then start working with Cineplex and build what I built for AMC at Cineplex? Oh, not anymore. Not anymore. The stories about how they completely take advantage of and manipulate their customers, and it's just been really sad for me. And I have put out open invitations. Please, somebody from Cineplex, somebody official at Cineplex, write to me and justify or state your case and your argument for the practices you guys engage in. I've yet to hear a word from them. I don't expect to hear anything from them, to be honest. I don't. But, I'm just making the point. I have an open standing invitation for anybody official at Cineplex to write to me, to give me their reasons why things are the way they are, and, tell your side of the story. Yet to hear anything from them on that front. Okay, listen, guys, we're going to take a short 5-minute break. We've been going a little bit over an hour right now. I'm going to go use the bathroom, refill my drink. We'll be back in just 5 minutes, so hang in there, and we'll pick up with Manny Garcia as soon as we get back. Hang tight. We'll be here in just a minute. And we are back. Thank you guys so much for being patient with me as I took a little break there, rested my voice up for a second, refilled my drink, and now we are ready to jump right back into it. So let's not waste any time and get to it. Manny Garcia writes, is Andy Serkis a good choice to direct Venom? He's only directed Mowgli, which was and Breathe, a romance movie. Okay, first of all, I wouldn't call Breathe just a romance movie. That was a heavy movie. I quite liked it, and I thought what he did with the performance there, especially Andrew Garfield, was great. I think he's got great sensibilities. I also am kind of mediocre on Mowgli, but when you look at the challenge of what that movie was, that's not an easy movie to make. And I don't know that there are a lot of directors that would have done a better job than him on that. So while I was middle of the road on Mowgli, there were certainly a lot of things about Andy Serkis's directing style that you could totally see. Remember, Peter Jackson loves Andy Serkis. He actually has Andy Serkis be his B-unit director on a lot of stuff. And I thought he did a great job of directing Breathe. I thought Breathe was great. I thought Breathe was really underrated and the direction he brought to that. So yeah, like Kevin Feige said, man, it's about whether can this person tell a story. He can tell a story. He will be a good fit to do that. Now, there are other directors who would also be a good fit, but I think Andy will definitely be one of them. All right. Mike Thompson writes, no questions today, John. I just wanted to hear you say, well, what? Nope. Sorry, Mike, not going to say it. Nice try, though. Nick Marbera writes, thoughts on the Tenet ties to Inception theory? I don't buy into them. I don't buy into them at all. Smartass Reviews writes, Child's Play made $42 million. Safe to say sequel is next? No. Because, look, from what I understood, they spent about $25 million on marketing the film. Now, that's nowhere near the $200+ million they used to market Endgame. So it's like almost a tenth of what they spent. But when you combine that $25 million onto the $10 million production budget, then you minus the 1/3, so probably about $13 million from the box office. Like the $42 million, that doesn't all go back to the studios. At least 1/3 of that stays with the theaters. So let's say we take out, I don't know, $13 million. Let's, for argument's sake, say 12. So really, the movie generated $30 million, and with marketing and production, they spent over $30 million. Does that guarantee that they lost money on Child's Play? No. But if it did make any profit, and that's a big if, it was hardly anything. So does that mean it's safe to say? No, not at all. For them to say it was safe to say they would get a sequel after spending $25 million on marketing, $10 million on production, to say it's safe that they'll get a sequel, you probably would have needed to see $75 to $80 million worldwide. To say it's safe to say we'll see a sequel, I don't think it's safe to say we will. And while I didn't mind Child's Play, it's also not all that great. So I'm going to suspect that no, we're not. Now, I don't know. I have no insider information, but my guess is we're not going to see another Child's Play. And the finances certainly don't back it up at this point. S. Beam writes, yes, HBO Max got streaming rights. Oh, streaming rights from BBC for Doctor Who, Eccleston to current, The Office, Luther, and Top Gear to try to entice streamers. Okay, yeah, but that doesn't mean it's exclusive to HBO Max, right? So streaming rights, but BBC can still air Doctor Who. It's just that the streaming rights go there. So that's not so bad. SBeam also writes, which sucks for me because I do follow Who. Classic Who is still on BritBox, but there will be no more newer Doctor Who on Prime Video in 2020. Well, but that's the world we live in, right, SBeam? These new streaming services are popping up, and people want exclusive content on their platform to attract people to become things. And it's going to become a problem. We've been saying this for a while. It's going to become a problem for consumers trying to decide which streaming services we want to be subscribed to, because not everybody can be subscribed to all of them because it gets expensive. Now, if they were all the same price as Disney Plus, that would be great. But Disney Plus is going to get more expensive too in the future. But it is part of the new world, man. It's part of the new world, this digital streaming world. Unlike, movies, there's only going to be certain places we get to see certain shows. And that's kind of part of the new reality. And that does suck. If you're a fan of that, that does suck. All right, Factual Opinion writes, I can now say Swamp Thing was an awesome miniseries. Yeah, I guess you can call, considering they canceled the damn show after one episode, which I will still never understand why they did that. I understand cutting the season short because of the tax credit problem. I understood that. But why you didn't take 8 months to a year to see if you can figure out other financing options before pulling the plug and announcing that the series was canceled after one episode, I will never understand that move. That's one of the biggest bonehead moves I've seen in a long time. All right. Jared McBride writes, John, I just want to thank you and your crew. You guys do an awesome job for what you do. This show is a highlight of my day, so thank you and keep up the great work. Oh, thank you so much, Jared. I really appreciate that. And I know me, Rob, Chris, Aaron, Rob, Jonathan, or Ray, Jonathan, we love doing this show and we love being a part of the film fan community. And it's always so nice when somebody like you, Jared, just wants to take a minute and just say something nice. And it's always good to know that you enjoy it as well. So thank you for that, man. I really, really appreciate that. All right. Scott Edwards writes, who do you think should be the villain in Avengers 5 and who should be on the new team? Don't care. I've been asked that many, many times, Scott, and my answer is always the same. I do not care. Because it doesn't matter who they make the villain. It really doesn't. It makes no difference who they make the villain. All that matters is that they write the villain great. Because I'll tell you right now, you could make Forky the villain of Avengers 5. You could make Forky the villain of Avengers 5. If you write it correctly and you give Forky depth, and you make it make sense in a narrative and make a compelling narrative around it, Forky could be the greatest villain ever in the history of the MCU. You think I'm joking, but I'm not. And it doesn't matter if you put the greatest comic book villain in. It makes no difference. Doctor Doom is one of the greatest comic book villains ever. And they've had him as the villain 3 times. And every time it sucked. So it makes no difference. All that matters is, does the screenwriter take whatever character they choose to be the villain and write a compelling story and give multiple dimensions to the character, hence making them a great villain for the screen? I was talking about this the other day, but it's true. Who is one of the greatest villains in the MCU? Loki, right? Loki. Who gave a crap about Loki before the first Thor movie? Nobody cared about Loki. Nobody cared about that character. And yet, they took him, wrote him in such a way that made him compelling, have multiple dimensions to them, made us feel empathy for the character while making him a great antagonist, all at the same time, and he became the first big bad in the first Avengers movie, what I still think is the greatest comic book movie of all time. For a character none of us cared about. I certainly couldn't give 2 squirts of piss about Loki before that first Thor movie. So it really doesn't matter. So my honest answer to that, Scott, is who should be the villain in Avengers 5? My answer is it doesn't matter. As long as the writers do a great job. Because you can pick a great comic book character and it could still end up sucking, like Doctor Doom. You could pick a lame comic book character, like Loki, and make him one of the greatest villains on the screen. And that's why I contend you can take Forky. Forky could be the next great villain against the Avengers. As far as who should be in the team, again, I don't care. I mean, you've obviously there's some people there. I think War Machine will still be part of the team. I think Doctor Strange will be there. Spider-Man will be there. I mean, we already know who the lineup is in the MCU. So it's just a matter of those MCU characters that are still alive and around. So that probably means Shang-Chi. It probably means Thor. It probably means Captain Marvel and Doctor Strange and Scarlet Witch and maybe Hawkeye. Not sure about that. But it's going to be amongst the people that we know are already there or that we already know are on their way in. But as far as the villain goes, it really doesn't matter. It only matters about who's writing it and how well do they write that character. Whether it's somebody like a Thanos, a Doctor Doom, or somebody like Forky. Because they can all work. And I think history's proved that. Anyway, James L.H. writes, I always find the box office interesting, such as no movies yet to fill the gap of $1.7 to $2 billion. Curious to see what will possibly to see what will, possibly Lion King or Star Wars. Star Wars is a possibility. My early guess, knowing nothing about the movie, is that Star Wars will come. I think Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker, will come in around the $1.5 billion range. I'm guessing the $1.5 billion range. I think it'll easily beat $1 billion. I don't think it'll get to $2 billion, so I'm going for 1.5. Lion King, I don't know if it's got $700 more million in it. Not with the reception it's getting. So I think just joining the $1 billion club is going to have to be good. But you're right, it is neat. There are a couple of movies that exceed $2 billion, but no movies have come in that range. As a matter of fact, when we look at the all-time worldwide box office charts, we go from at number 6, Jurassic World at 1.6, and then number 5 is Avengers Infinity War at $2 billion. Nothing in between. That $300 million range between 1.7 and 2. It is an interesting thing, but no, I don't think either Lion King or Star Wars will get there. But ask me again about Star Wars as we get closer to its release. After we see, new trailers and all that kind of stuff, ask me then. But right now, I'm going to guess that neither Lion King nor Star Wars will get in that $1.7 to $2 billion window. All right. King, where are we at? King Latam writes, "Hey, John, what impact, if any, do you think Jedi Fallen Order and The Mandalorian will have on Rise of Skywalker's box office? If both are great, positive momentum could have an effect." I think we've seen numerous times that there's really no connection between the video game stuff and the movie stuff. Success of one doesn't equal success of the other. I think there's a disconnect there. Could a Disney Plus Mandalorian add to the box office of Last Jedi? Yeah, good question. I'm going to guess some, but minor. Some impact, but minor. I don't think there's going to be a huge impact. I think if The Mandalorian is the greatest show of all time, I think it'll have a minor benefit to Star Wars Rise of Skywalker. I think if Mandalorian sucks, it'll have a minor negative impact on Star Wars Rise of Skywalker. I really don't see it having too much. A little bit of one, but maybe not a big one, per se, The real thing that's going to have an impact on Rise of Skywalker is going to be its trailers. That's going to be the big thing, the trailers. Let's see if the trailers suck people in or not. And if they do, it could be very big. And then the quality of the movie. Will it be as good as The Force Awakens? Will it be as divisive as The Last Jedi? I mean, so those are going to have the bigger impact. Really, I don't think Mandalorian. I think Fallen Order will have zero impact on how Rise of Skywalker does. I think Mandalorian will have a minimal impact. An impact, but minimal, both positively and negatively. We'll see how it all works out, though. Again, let's get closer till when the movie comes out. Thanks for the question, King Latom. Appreciate it, man. All right, Chris Warden writes, John, it's both mine and my girlfriend Shannon's birthday. Really? You and your girlfriend share the same birthday? That's actually kind of awesome. With myself turning the big 4-0, we've been loyal viewers since 2013. Any chance of a birthday shout out? Well, absolutely. Happy birthday, Chris. That's pretty cool that you and your girlfriend have the same birthday. That's pretty cool. So happy birthday, Chris, to you and your girlfriend. I hope you guys have, number one, had a great year, but number two, that you have a wonderful year ahead. May you have all the peace and prosperity, live long and prosper, all the other, symbolic blessings I can bestow upon you right now. May you guys have a fabulous year ahead and have a great day today for your birthday. It's pretty awesome that it falls on a Saturday as well. So that's pretty cool too. So thanks for sharing that, Chris, and happy birthday to both of you, man. All right. Factual Opinion writes, should Paramount reboot Star Trek or recast Mr. Pine? It depends on what they want to do with their story. Look, if they like the movie they have and they like the story they have, just recast them then. I'm all for recasting actors. Just recast. And to be clear, I'm a big Chris Pine fan. I like Chris Pine a lot, and I think he's been great as Captain Kirk. I think he's been a great Kirk. But the movie's more important than the actor. It just is. The story is more important than the character. The character is more important than the actor. So just recast him. If, however, you're Paramount and you're not really committed to the next story you have, then reboot. Wait a couple years, reboot. Either way, they're both fine options. They're both options that are on the table. But it comes down to, what does Paramount want to do with the next movie? Do they really want to make this next one with this story? Well, then do it and just recast Chris Pine's role. Big movies have recast roles before, and it's worked out perfectly well. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it does. So you'd be rolling the dice a little bit. But if Paramount isn't really married to the idea of it, then just wait a couple years and reboot it again. We'll see. Fan of Peanuts writes, eating sushi, listening to Game of Thrones soundtrack, and watching you. If I were a sushi fan, which I'm not, I'd say that sounds like a good combo. So I'm glad you are living your best life on this weekend, a Fan of Peanuts. You are living your best life. Scott Edwards writes, are you excited for the Black Widow movie? Honestly, no. And I'm not all that excited. Just look, I've said ever since back in the days of the Avengers, what I'm not really interested in is either a Hawkeye or a Black Widow movie. I love the Hawkeye character. I love the Black Widow character, but I see them as supporting characters. Important, vital, and great supporting characters, but I'm not really interested in their own solo stories, to be honest. That doesn't mean that when the Hawkeye show comes out that I'm not going to watch it and judge it on its own merits, and maybe I'll love it. And that doesn't mean that I'm not going to go in and watch the Black Widow movie and judge it on its own merits, and maybe it'll become my favorite movie ever. Who knows? But if you're asking me in advance if I'm excited about it, no. I'm not excited about either the Hawkeye show or the Black Widow show. Or the Black Widow movie, I should say. I'm going to go to them. I'm going to watch one on Disney Plus. I'm going to go to the theaters and watch Black Widow. And I'll judge them on, I'll leave my expectations at the door and I'll judge them on its own merits. But as of right now, to be honest, I'm not dreading them. You know, it's not like I'm against those movies, but am I excited for them? I got to admit, right now I'm not. We'll see what happens. Troy Strauss writes, John, here's $2 for the best, or for the Bane impression. It's good. My impressions are horrible. I don't know. Listen, I don't know why I continue on my shows to try to do impressions of either celebrities or characters, because my impressions are awful. And the other day, Bane came up, and I'm like, yes, Mr. Wayne, now you will see. It's just, a friend of mine once described the voice of Bane as how did he describe it? A Mike Tyson voiced mumbling British butler. I think that's how my friend described it. Well, Mr. Wayne, won't you come in now? Your lunch will be ready. I think my Bane is terrible. But thank you for your kind words, Troy, nonetheless. All right, James Bonner writes, so now I'm a Regal Unlimited member. Good for you, man. Since they lock you into 1 year, I decided to pay up front and not have the hassle of monthly payments. I do the exact same thing. I do not like monthly payments. I pay for everything up front. I don't do installment plans. You want to know how to get a good handle on your finances? Remove the monthly expenses you have, and as many as you can, and this is practical. Like, if you're going to go buy a new laptop, don't buy it on a payment plan. Wait until you got the money and then buy it and not have to pay monthly installments. Just buy it. Obviously, a house will be an exception. Maybe a car will be an exception. But that's how I like to do things, James. Just pay for it up front, not worry about it, if that's an option that's available to you. Anyway, I decided to pay up front and not have the hassle of monthly payments. I'll be giving it a test run in the next few days. And again, look, no, there's no debating it. The Regal Unlimited plan is obviously not as good as AMC A-List. But it's still good. Like, if you live somewhere where the movie theaters around you are Regal theaters and you go to more than 2 movies a month, this is a good deal. Pardon me. This is a good deal. Yeah, it's not as good as A-List. Fine. But you don't have an AMC beside you. You do have a Regal beside you. And if you go to 2 to 3 movies a month or more, then this Regal Unlimited deal is a great deal. It will save you money. And that's the bottom line, right? It'll save you money. That's the most important thing. So, good on you, James. Please do in the future write in and let me know about your experiences with it. Let me know if it's if it's easy to use, is their app intuitive? Have you run into more limitations? Because despite the fact that they call it unlimited, there are limitations. But yeah, do let me know about that. So thanks for letting me know, James. And please let everybody know how well this service works out for you, because I think we'd be curious to know. Thanks for sharing, man. All right. Super D writes, or D Super writes, part 1. Just sitting here eating my eggs with ketchup, watching Spider-Man Far From Home, loving the connection with him and Iron Man. But I was wondering who would have been a good fit to play Wolverine. Who would be a good fit to play Wolverine? I also admire the way showed the realism of how super women is more powerful than Superman. As always, bring on the nasty. Okay. I think what D is trying to do is squeeze in everything that annoys me into one thing. But by the way, I love the connection between Peter and Tony Stark. I love their relationship. I really do. I just don't love that they've turned him into Iron Man Jr. They took a Spider-Man character and made him Iron Man Jr. I don't like that. But the nature of the relationship between the two of them, the emotion and the connection, I love. I love that. I think that's great. So while D is clearly trying to poke me in all of the bruise spots, I will actually say about that one thing. I love Far From Home, and I love the connection between Peter and Tony and the nature of their relationship. I just don't like that Marvel has turned Spider-Man into Iron Man Jr. I still love Spider-Man. I still love Tom Holland in it. I love the movie and all that kind of stuff, but that's still the one thing that irks me a little bit, despite all the other little ways that D Super is trying to push on my bruises, and I appreciate that. But I actually do like the relationship between Peter and Tony. Hey, thanks for sending that in, man. All right, Bullet 1510 writes, wouldn't mind if Thor 4 was like Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Multiple dimensions with MCU Thor, Mighty Thor, Portman, Beta Ray Bill, and Thor. It's already been done. It's already been done. And who knows, Bullet 1510? I mean, look, maybe they do something like the way you're describing it, and maybe it works out great. Possibly. And that'll be wonderful. But to me, it just sounds lazy, and it just sounds kind of dumb. And Spider-Man Into Spider-Verse already did it, and did it better than you're going to do it, you know? If I'm talking to Feige, I'm like, seriously, Into the Spider-Verse did it, and they did it better than you could do it. So just put your hands up and walk away from that. I don't know. But I mean, listen, what you're describing is not the farthest fetched thing. Maybe that is what they're going to be doing. Because remember, before Thor Love and Thunder comes out, Doctor Strange 2, Multiverse of Madness, I think it's called, will have happened. So maybe they will do that. So it's not the craziest thing, Bullet, to think that maybe they do something like that. I'm just thinking it would be a mistake. But who knows? We'll have to wait and see. But I don't think your logic is off. I don't think your logic is off at all. It could be something that they're thinking. All right, Alex, where do we go here? Where do we go? Sorry, another big jump, guys. Here we go. All right. Alex Spur writes, the de-aging looked fake and distracting in the new Irishman trailer. I don't know if I'll be able to enjoy the film as much. It just looked weird. See, I don't know that I agree, Alex. Like, first of all, I didn't think the Irishman trailer was all that good. I didn't think it was bad, but it's just nothing. There is nothing to that trailer. But I will say this. I didn't find the de-aging stuff bad. I actually thought it looked pretty natural. Now, we've been hearing whispers that the de-aging effect in The Irishman doesn't work as well as they thought maybe it did. And maybe that's true. But in that trailer, I didn't see much evidence that it didn't work out well. I thought it looked pretty natural. Now, maybe but they showed very little of it. I mean, that's the other thing we got to keep in mind here, Alex, right? Is that they showed very little of it. And maybe they're hiding it, for all I know. All I can say, honestly, is that even though I didn't love the trailer, I didn't find the de-aging stuff that looked all that bad, even though they only showed us just a little bit of it. So we're just going to have to wait and find out. All right. Samuel May writes, watch Snatch for the first... Oh, God, I love Snatch. Watch Snatch for the first time, and I loved it. Everyone was great, and the writing was amazing. That is seriously another big underrated movie. In my top 20 all-time favorite films. Protection from what? The Germans? I mean, Jason Statham is so good in that. Guy Ritchie directed. The movie is a effing masterpiece. I could watch that movie every week for the rest of my life. And maybe my favorite Brad Pitt role ever. I love Brad Pitt in that movie. Snatch is so good. If you guys haven't seen Snatch, please follow Samuel May's advice here and go and watch it because it's great. Shelley Belly writes, Box Office Mojo, the main source for box office info, agrees with you and me too. Endgame did not have a re-release. People still constantly say it did. I know. I mean, that was one of the dumbest things. Like, Endgame getting a re-release. Time out. It's still in theaters. You cannot have a re-release if you're still in release. It's not a re-release. Yes, it is, John. It's a re-release. No, it's not. This isn't up for debate. This isn't a subjective thing like the quality of film. It is literally still in its theatrical run, and it's still in its theatrical run. To be re-released means your release needs to end, and now you're releasing it again, and that is not what happened. And yes, that is why Box Office Mojo does not count it as a re-release, because it wasn't a re-release. They did expand into a few more theaters, but that happens all the time. That's not a re-release. A movie comes out and sometimes it has an expanded release, but that's a different terminology. It's a totally different thing. But you're right, Shelley, it was not a re-release. It really wasn't much of anything, but it was not a re-release by any definition. By any definition, it's not a re-release. That's not a subjective thing. That's a fact. It's not a re-release. It was still in its theatrical run. Period. So anyway, I got all worked up about that. Let's see. Liam Donaghy writes, John, I am so with you, but worse. During the peak of 3D films 5+ years ago, my UK cinema chain showed only 3D versions of films. I missed so many films. I know, I heard that complaint a lot. And I remember, there were times that I would go to my local AMC a few years ago and it'd be like, ugh. And there would just be times like the non-3D screening would be sold out, but the 3D one would have empty seats. And it's like, oh, all right. And a couple of times where the only movies they showed were 3D. Like there'd be a particular movie and the only version of that movie they were showing was the 3D version. And hated that. Part of the reason why I'm so glad for the demise of 3D. And it's not gone yet, but I'll be waiting with my confetti and jingle bells. I'll be ready with my party favors to go when 3D dies. I'm so glad it died in home theater. I'm so glad fewer films do it now in the movie theater. I cannot wait for 3D to go away. Now listen, that being said, I am completely open to new technology in 3D to make a better 3D experience than what we've got. I'm open to that. But 3D the way it is right now, it's a useless gimmick. It's a shtick, and it's just an excuse to charge you more for your tickets. So I'm totally excited about the death of 3D. I hope it goes away someday soon. Until they rejuvenate the technology, bring in new elements of technology that maybe make it a better experience. But for now, it's just an excuse for them to charge you more money for your tickets. Sam Neal, or O'Neill, sends in a super chat. Thank you, Sam. So does Rolo Tomasi. Thank you very much, guys. Ben Rayner writes, do you agree with this? Funniest Will Ferrell movie, Step Brothers, but Will Ferrell's funniest character, Ron Burgundy. Ooh, you know what? That's a good way to put it. Okay, my preliminary response to that. Now, which means I reserve the right to change my response to this later after giving it more thought. But I'll at least say my initial preliminary response to the statement, the funniest Will Ferrell movie is Step Brothers, but Will Ferrell's funniest character is Ron Burgundy. I will agree with that for now. For now, I agree. I think that's a good way to put it, Ben. So for now, right now, I will go with you on that. That's a good topic for conversation. Alwyn John Abdon writes, hey, how are you doing, John? I'm doing great, Alwyn. Thank you so much. I know Fast and Furious makes a lot of money, but it's nothing like the first or third parts. No cars, no races. Now it's viruses. It's Mission Impossible on steroids, but worse. And thoughts on boys. I don't know what you mean by thoughts on boys. I don't know what that means. As far as that's different, well, now, this is not a popular opinion. I think the first 3 Fast and Furious movies suck. There, I said it. Fast and Furious 1 is a blatant beat-by-beat ripoff of Point Break. It just is. Fast and the Furious, the first movie, is a blatant story point by story point by story point, blatant ripoff of Keanu Reeves's and Patrick Swayze's Point Break. It's the exact same movie. It's just that one has cars racing. That's it. Other than that, it's a complete ripoff of the film. I thought Fast 2 sucked. I thought Fast 3 sucked. Now, that again, I'm not saying everybody thinks that. I'm just saying that's me. It was when it started to evolve in 4, and there was a lot of car racing in 4, that I feel like Fast and Furious really found its true identity. And yeah, there's not a lot of car racing anymore, but even in Fast and the Furious, even in Hobbs and Shaw, you got a big car racing, although it also involves helicopters. We see it in the trailer. I'm not spoiling anything. They involve helicopters and all this kind of stuff, but they kick in the nos and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's part of it. We got a great car race scene involving, this great slicked out sports car that Jason Statham's driving. Again, you see it in the trailer where he and motorcycles are going through the streets and blah, blah. They always incorporate that in. But is it about car racing anymore? No. Nor should it be. You got to evolve beyond that at some point, right? You got to evolve beyond it. And I think Fast and Furious evolved beyond it. And I don't think you can ever go back to just making them about street racing. They've been there. They've done that, I think. It's time to move beyond it. And quite frankly, in my opinion, the movies that did focus more on street racing were the ones that really sucked. And that's why they didn't make any money. Or at least not real money. The kind of money those movies make now, at any rate. So, again, if you're going to make a film franchise that gets into your 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, you got to evolve. And I think Fast and Furious is one of the things that involved. They still have that DNA. They still have those elements that you're going to always get big car chases in a Fast and Furious movie. But you can't make it about street racing anymore. It can't be about that anymore because you've done it already, So anyway, I know that's an unpopular opinion, but you did ask, so I'm going to give you mine. So that's what I think about it anyway. I'm sure you got your own opinions on that as well, and your opinion is every bit as valid as mine, but that is mine on this topic. All right, thanks for asking, Alwyn. I appreciate it, man. All right, Michael Redhead writes, 1 of 3. I have UK Unlimited card. When Endgame came out, I watched it 6 times in the cinema in 1 week. Good on you, man. 2 of 3. Then in a group chat, someone posted 90% perfect bootleg copy. I watched the bootleg every day whilst at work, but used my Unlimited card to buy a ticket every time I watched it. Not sure about the ethics of that, to be honest with you, Michael. 3. Is it really unlimited? Sorry, it really is unlimited. Does Lord Campea accept this? I'm conflicted now as it's left the screens. I would say this, and I'm not, by the way, kudos to you for the honesty. Thank you for sharing that. Big kudos to you for the honesty. I would suggest that there's an ethical problem there because you're not actually paying for the ticket, right? You're not actually paying for the ticket. You're taking advantage of a system that has covering for you, but you're not actually spending anything. And by the way, when you're paying those tickets, when you're booking your seats for Unlimited, you're taking away a seat from somebody else that may want to be in that screening. Look, my bottom line is this. And again, big kudos to you for not only the honesty, but for bringing it up as an ethical question, asking, hey, is this or should I be doing this? My position on this is pretty clear. I don't endorse piracy in any way, shape, or form. I don't endorse piracy in any way, shape, or form. And so I think there's an ethical problem there. I do. I think there's a true ethical problem. And I remember, first of all, I've always been against piracy, but it really hit home for me when John Schnepp was still alive. And John Schnepp broke himself with his blood, sweat, tears, energy, and all of his finances to make The Death of Superman Lives what happened. He banked everything on it. And he did okay. But I remember watching how heartbroken he was, how devastated he was, when he would see everybody talking about online about how they're pirating Death of Superman Lives What Happened. Somebody put it up online, got around, everybody started watching it that way. And, you know, John would then look at his bank account. You know, he poured years of his life, all of his finances, almost all of his time, all of his energy, all of his relationships. He poured everything into that movie. And then for him to sit back and see the numbers climb of how many times that his movie had been pirated, that people would just come and take what he made without contributing back to its creator. And while I had always been against piracy up to that point, it took on a very personal nature then at that. When I actually saw somebody, and it wasn't just John, it wasn't just Schnepp, it was all the people who worked with Schnepp who a lot of their finances were going to be based on how much money the movie was able to make. And with hundreds of thousands of people just pirating his movie. I'm going to tell you this. There's a little bit of behind the scenes on John Schnepp. You can imagine it made him mad. It didn't just make him mad. It broke his heart. It broke his heart. I think it made him feel very disillusioned. I think he kind of felt like at the time, and I'm giving you my interpretation of this, okay? Please understand, I'm giving my interpretation of this. I felt like at the time, he almost felt like the relationship between him and the online community was being violated. It's like, he kind of felt like, hey, we're all film fans together, and we're in this online community together, and we love one another, and blah, 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 and you're stealing my movie. And I think there was a period of time that John was very heartbroken and disillusioned with the online film fan community when he himself, and it made it very personal, when he poured everything in years of his life and all that kind of stuff, and people just stole it. They just stole it. And the vast majority of those people, Michael, don't have the integrity that you have to say, hey, you know what? Let's ask this question. Maybe we should be asking these questions. I think more people should be like you, Michael, on this and say, let's at least raise the question. Is this something that's right? Should we be doing this? Because whether you're stealing from somebody who has nothing or whether you're stealing from somebody who has everything, you're still stealing, right? That's what it is to me, at any rate. And I think if more people had the integrity, Michael, that you have, to say, you know what, I'm doing this and I feel okay about it, I think, but I think we should at least raise the question. Let's wait. I think if more people had your kind of integrity, I think this would be an issue that would get resolved. I really do. I think if more people had your kind of integrity, I think more people would actually talk about it honestly. And again, I admit this has a particular personal thing to me because I watched somebody go through and suffer the results and suffer the consequences of what piracy did. And it could have ruined him. It could have ruined him. It certainly hurt him, and it certainly broke his heart. But I watched, yeah. So I got to admit, so take with a grain of salt that you're hearing this coming from somebody who watched up close and personal what the effects of online piracy did to an individual, who poured his blood, sweat, tears, passion, not just him, the team of people who worked with him as well, spent years of their life, blood, sweat, tears, blah, 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 and instead of buying it and paying for it, people thought it was okay just to steal it. And that nearly broke him. Anyway, so I'm biased. So you got to take everything I say with a grain of salt. I just think, Michael, again, I think if more people had the integrity that you have to say, let's bring up this question, let's talk about it openly and honestly, I think it would be less of a problem. But again, I'm biased because I saw it hurt a friend of mine. And so I'm always going to be a little bit more sensitive to it, and I admit that. I admit it. So take what I say with a grain of salt. But thank you for having the integrity to at least raise the question, my friend. I appreciate that. All right. Let's see. Sam O'Neill writes, hey, John, found your channel about a week ago and you have been spamming it like crazy. Thank you so much for doing what you do. None of my friends make movies, so thank you so much. Well, I mean, I don't make movies either. I don't make movies either, but I'm glad. Look, I love having this online community that we can get on here every day and talk about the things we love, movies and movie news, whether it's stupid, dumb, light stuff like, should Captain America be able to wield Stormbreaker? That, to me, is the big, heavy question of the day. That should tell you something about me. The important questions that I want to spend my time talking about. Should Captain America be wielding Stormbreaker or not? To questions like what Michael's bringing up, like, hey, the ethics of piracy and how does piracy and our ethics of piracy become affected by the fact that we have these unlimited types of cards, and how does that play into it? Like, so we'll talk about these deeper issues as results to our film fan experience. And should Captain America be able to wield Stormbreaker? But it's great. It's what we as film fans like to talk about. And thank you for being a part of it, Sam. I appreciate you being here. All right, next one. Rolo Tomasi writes, if dusted on an airplane 40,000 feet up, or in space, boat, or at sea, or in traffic on a highway, the snapback was a death sentence for billions. Now, here's the thing, Rolo. We've addressed this several times. I believe if you were a passenger on plane 45, B-45 on its way to Moscow, say, from Heathrow, I believe that when you reappeared in the seat of that plane, not where the plane was. All right? I believe you reappeared in the seat of that plane, wherever the plane was then at that point, not where the plane was. So I don't think you reappear 15,000 feet in the air with no plane and then just fall to your death. I think you reappear in the seat of that plane, wherever the plane was. Because remember, the snap and the unsnapping there was part of mental intent, right? There's mental intent. So it wouldn't just, when Hulk is unsnapping, he's not just thinking, just bring everybody back. He's bring everybody back safely. That's why it's not, when Tony snaps, it's not just kill anybody who came here with Thanos. It was kill everybody fighting for Thanos. That's why Gamora didn't dust. She came there with Thanos, but she wasn't fighting for Thanos. That's why she didn't dust. So I think there was some mental intent. I don't think it was just a force of nature. So that's why I believe people just reappeared safely in the context they were in when they disappeared. That's what I think at any rate. All right. Let's see here. Suthius writes, Star Wars, the Forky Awakens. I'm telling you, this could be your next big villain in Star Wars as well. There's your crossover. Forky is the big villain in Avengers 5, and then Forky is the new villain in Star Wars after Episode 9. There you go. That's the connective tissue right there. Bullet 510 writes, have you seen Taika's Jojo Rabbit / Downfall meme video? It's hilarious. Looking forward to the film. I love his sense of humor. No, I have not seen that video. I've seen the trailer, obviously, for Jojo Rabbit, and I think the trailer looks fascinating. I was intrigued by the sound of the movie, but it's like, what the hell is that going to be? And now that I've seen the trailer, I'm all on board. But I haven't seen that particular, I don't even know what Downfall is. Jojo Rabbit / Downfall meme video. I'll have to look that up. But to me, the trailer's dynamite, Bullet. I think the trailer's dynamite. It's such a weird way to approach it that I watch it, I'm like, I don't know what I just watched, but I gotta see this movie. You know what I mean? So I'm looking forward to it a great deal. Okay, next up, Sam O'Neill writes, also, the best scene in Spaceballs is the asshole scene. Yeah, how many assholes have we got on the ship? I'm surrounded by assholes. Shout out from Australia. Holy hell, it's early here. I don't even know what time it is in Australia, my friend. But yes, look, Spaceballs has so many great moments. Spaceballs has so many great scenes. Whether it's the Schwartz stuff, whether it's the evil will always triumph stuff, whether it's all of Barf's stuff, Bartholomew, whether it's, but yes, the asshole scene, major asshole, sir. How many assholes are there? I'm surrounded by, that is God, Spaceballs is so good, and that is also a great part of it. All right, Taki75 writes, underrated scene in Endgame. When Peter sees Ned at school, they initially try to play it cool, but eventually hug each other and start crying. It's a great moment. I love the Ned character, by the way. I love the Ned character in Spider-Man. The actor's name is Jacob Bartolone. I know this because he's a Filipino kid. So that's all my wife's side of the family talks about. Anne, Filipino. Ray, Filipino. So that's all they want to talk about is Jacob Bartolone. But I really like him in these movies. I like him a lot in those. But you're right, Taki. That was a really good moment. Suthius writes, sequel to Megaforce coming soon, Megaforky. But a lot of you guys saying, wait, what's Megaforce? Just trust me, look it up. If I could have a sequel to any terrible movie in history, it would be a sequel to Megaforce. Life is like a wheel. It all comes around. I'd want to see a sequel to Megaforce. I love that terrible, terrible movie. Love it. The Sock writes, why do people assume that a movie making X amount of money equals everyone who saw it liking that movie? It's such a shallow way to look at things. I honestly don't find a lot of people do. I honestly think the Sock that most people understand that a movie making money doesn't mean people liked watching it. Look, a movie having a giant opening weekend, what that tells us is that it was a premise that the audience was interested in, and the corporation did a great job at its commercials. A corporation did a great marketing campaign. That's what opening weekend tells me. There's a lot of things that go into what's something that interests people and get them to come out to a movie, but you don't know whether you like that movie until after you paid for your ticket and went to go see it. So no. Now, when you get a movie like Endgame that makes over $2 billion, that means people are going back again and again and again to watch it. That does speak to the quality a little bit, at least to a degree, right? At least to a degree. But no, money does not equal quality. And quality doesn't automatically equal money. They can, but it's not an automatic thing. And I think more and more people, I should say, Sock, are realizing there's a difference between the two. I don't find it to be as much of an issue as it was a few years ago, because I think more and more people, I think the audience is becoming more sophisticated to what the box office does and doesn't mean. So anyway, that's what I think at any rate. But it's a good observation. All right, Suthius, lost Suthius. Where do we go? Suthius writes, new president to stop a threat instead of Air Force One, Air Forky One. Okay, bring him on, guys. Bring him on. Forky's loving it. You're very handsome, John. Thank you, Forky. Forky's also very observant as well. JB Bonifacio writes, without spoiling Hobbs and Shaw, I'm dying to see The Rock make a deal with Marvel after seeing him interact with blank. Happy Saturday, filthy. Well, listen, I think blank is the cameo. For those of you who see Hobbs and Shaw already, you know the character we're talking about. But remember, Dwayne The Rock Johnson's already put out a public statement saying the post-credit scene of Hobbs and Shaw, and we know who's in the post-credit scene. The post-credit scene of Hobbs and Shaw gives you a look at what the new team is going to be. So I expect, as long as Hobbs and Shaw doesn't flop, right? As long as it doesn't flop, that the next Hobbs and Shaw movie will include this character as a main character. That's what I'm thinking, but we'll have to wait and see. All right, Taki75 writes, details that count. When Cap and Thor exchange Stormbreaker and Mjolnir, behind them Mantis puts to sleep one of Thanos' space gorillas. Oh, I didn't even know. You know, that's the thing about that big, the battle at Avengers headquarters, is there's so much going on that I'm sure I've seen the movie 4 times now. I just bought my digital copy yesterday, but I haven't had a chance to watch it yet. With all the stuff going on, there's a lot of stuff that I think goes unnoticed. Like, it took me to my 4th watching of it that I finally saw Korg. People can say, yeah, Korg's there. I'm like, I didn't see Korg. And it wasn't until my 4th viewing that I saw him. And I'm sure there's a lot of stuff going on in the background of a lot of scenes that a lot of us have missed, because the main action, like Thor and Captain America exchanging, you know, their mythical weapons, you're probably not paying attention to what's going on in the background. And that's one of the things I'm going to look forward to watch as I watch Endgame again here at home. That's one of the things I'm going to enjoy doing, is going slowly through the film to catch all the things, particularly in the big battle at the end, of all the things that I've missed before. All right, Michael Redhead writes, hear ya, R.I.P. Schnepp and understood. And again, remember, Michael, I'm not telling you the truth. I'm telling you my opinion on it. And just because that's my opinion, you got to take it with a grain of salt that I am biased, because I had a personal relationship with somebody who went through all that, as well as just my perspective. You may have a different perspective. It's not necessary that I'm right. I might be wrong. But it's just something to keep in mind. And again, I appreciate that you had the integrity to bring it up as an issue. So I thank you for that, sir. All right. Royce Freeman, last couple of questions for the day. Royce Freeman writes, we've already gone over 2 hours today. As a filmmaker, I don't agree with piracy. How do you feel about shows and movies that never got released being sold by fans at conventions? See, that brings in a different, ethical way of looking at it. For instance, this falls kind of in line with this scenario, right? And I remember me and some friends of mine had a discussion about this. Is what about movies and TV shows you can't get anywhere? Like, okay, there's this TV show that I loved. Or, okay, let's say a movie. Let's keep it easier. There's a movie that I loved, but I can't find it anywhere. I literally do not have an avenue available to me to pay somebody to watch it. I'm not wanting to circumvent anybody's avenue of making money off of their creation. I literally just, because I remember me and my friends had this come up several times. There was a movie that we knew about or want to, but there was literally nowhere we could find it. There wasn't any avenue placed in front of us that says, hey, pay us $10 and you can have the movie, which we would have done, but we literally couldn't find any way of getting it. A great example of that is Star Wars, the Christmas special, the Star Wars Christmas special, right? There's no legitimate way to watch that. There's just honestly no legitimate way to watch Star Wars, the Christmas special. Is that then piracy? Is that then piracy to get a pirated version of it because you wanted to pay for it, you are willing to pay for it, but they are not giving you any avenue to pay for it? Is that piracy? It's a great ethical question, and to go along with the scenario that you're painting there, Royce. I mean, how do you do about? I don't know. It's a great question, but not one I've dedicated enough of my few remaining brain cells to really think it through. But it's a wonderful, debatable question. I think we should have more conversations about it. I think it's interesting. Anyway, Kevin Kakaten writes, hey, John, is it just me, or does it seem like the MCU Thor is written like a teenager? In Ragnarok and Endgame, he's essentially doesn't know who he is. No, I think what we've seen in Thor, look, when you really look at Thor's overall arc, from the first brilliant Kenneth Branagh film to Thor Endgame, we meet a Thor who has always seen the universe one way in the first Thor, right? Thor has always been one way. He's always seen the universe through one lens and seen it one way. So he is the way he is in that first Thor. Then a lot of things change for him. He becomes disillusioned by a lot of things. His core beliefs become challenged in different ways. And we start to see a change in Thor. Hasn't really taken root in Thor the Dark World, which isn't so great, but then the events of Avengers, he's exposed to different things and different ideas and had old preconceived notions shattered. And we see Thor since then in a period of transition. You know, with a lot of his life, his worldview was always one way on Asgard. And that's been changed and challenged and in some ways shattered, not to mention major life events like the death of his father and all that kind of stuff. So I think what we see is a character in transition. In some ways, like a teenager. A teenager is in that transition phase between childhood and adulthood and going through some massive changes. So in that way, Kevin, I could see the analogy. I can see the analogy there. Haskell420 writes, may the Forky be with you. May the Fork be with you. Hey, everybody. I love Forky. All right. Sinfinity and Beyond. Currently buying a copy of Schnepp's film, #sweaty. Thank you for that. And it is a great documentary. If you've never seen John Schnepp's great documentary, The Death of Superman Lives, What Happened, it's informative, it's entertaining. You should absolutely check it out because it's wonderful. Laugh Warehouse writes, which TV finale happens first, Family Guy or Simpsons? Ooh. Wow. Simpsons. I don't see Family Guy losing any steam right now. So, whew, that's a great question, Laugh Warehouse. That's really good. I'm going to lean towards Simpsons will have its finale first, but I have no idea when that's going to happen, nor do I have any idea what's going to happen with Family Guy, and it very well could be Family Guy, but I'll lean towards The Simpsons. S. Beam writes, when is that tech video coming? If you're talking about the video I'm going to do, walking you guys through all my equipment, how I do this kind of stuff, it's going to be a while. Because you're talking about committing a lot of hours to making that. It's going to take a while. So probably not anytime soon. I'm going to hopefully get it by the end of the year. But it's a big undertaking. It's a big undertaking because I don't have 10 seconds in a regular day to rub together. And it's going to be a big undertaking to do it. So by the end of the year, I'm hoping by the end of the year. All right. Final question of the day, guys, and then we're going to wrap it up. And this final question today comes to us from Haskell420, who writes, John, I made an error. The guy who played Hugh in The Next Generation was part of Picard's San Diego Comic-Con panel. He's not in the trailer unless he's the body laying on the table. Okay, but still, I mean, your point is still made, though, Haskell, right? I mean, if he's on the panel at Comic-Con for the show Picard, that's probably a pretty good indication that Hugh will be in the show itself. So even though you might have gotten a detail wrong, I think the overall point you make still stands, which I think is wonderful. Because not only do we see 7 of 9, because remember, Picard was Locutus of Borg, right? To have Hugh in there too is a great connection to that. And we see either a dismantled or a reconstructed Borg cube there. So Borg are clearly going to have an integral part of whatever this Picard series is going to be about. I'm not saying the show's going to be about Borg, but clearly Borg are going to play an integral part. We got 7 and 9. We got Hugh. We got Picard, who is Locutus of Borg. We got that either destroyed or being reconstructed, whatever it is, Borg cube in the shot. So clearly that's going to play a part of it. So I think that's pretty interesting. All right, guys, that will do it for today's installment of Open Mic. Thank you so much for being here, guys. This has been a lot of fun. Listen, it's Saturday. Have a great day. Enjoy your weekend. Do something fun and refreshing. Don't forget, the open mic will return again tomorrow. So we're going to have another open mic tomorrow. Make sure you come and join us for that. And then Monday, the John Campea Show returns with me, Chris, Robert Meyer Burnett will be here as well. Make sure you guys got it marked on your calendar to join us for that. Guys, special thank you to all of you for spending part of your day here with us. It's been a lot of fun. I've had a great day. I'm going to go watch some UFC now, guys. So my name is John Campea, and until next time, bye-bye.